This is awesome. Today I would like to speak on the topic of when facing impossible situations. Are you in that situation right now that you could say to yourself honestly that you're facing impossible situation? Are you in that situation right now? That's you. Again, you're on the right place. You're on the right time. But if that's not you at this moment, let me tell you, sooner or later, maybe tomorrow or next week or next month, you will also face impossible situations. Isn't it? So still, you are in the right place, in the right time. So our text for today is on John chapter 6, verse 1 to 13. This is a very, very popular story in the Bible. And I know many of you already heard about this. Come on, let's read it. Okay, I would like to entitle the message today, When Facing the Impossible. Some of you just came out of the impossible situation and you break through. But thank you, Lord, you're here. So John 6, 1 to 5. Let's read first the first 5 verses of John 6. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is the Sea of Tiberias. And great crowd of people followed him because, what? They saw the signs and had performed by healing the sick. Jesus performed miracles and wonders by healing the sick. He was popular during that time. That's why this crowd of people followed Jesus. Wherever Jesus goes, they follow Jesus because they want to see more wonders, miracles. And now, on verse 3, then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples, hoping that they could have some rest or catch up or debriefing with his apostles during that time. They sat down on the mountain. Oh, finally, after days, hours of ministry, healing, teaching, we can now sit down here with my disciple, have some debriefing, have some, catching up. Verse 4 said the Jewish Passover festival was near. You know what? That's a very big feast during that time. So there are so many people on that area, on the city, but they were on the mountainside. On verse 4, let's continue. Verse 5, let's continue reading. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming down to him while they were seated on the mountainside with the apostles, hoping to get some rest. And then he looked up and saw the crowd coming toward him. He said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" If you're going to continue reading until verse 13, you will find out that this crowd of people is not just a crowd of 10, 20, 30 people. Who could guess or who read about this? How many people we're talking about here? 5,000 men. It's in your Bible. It says there, it's about 5,000 men. If there are men, there would be what? Women. You know what? In religious activities, in the gathering, how you could find more women than men. Like here. There are more women here than men. So, they counted, because during that time, they count only the head of the family. They always count the men. And here they said 5,000 men. So if we're going to use our common sense, at least there would be 7,000 or 10,000 women with the men. And if there are men and women, you could also find children. And maybe 5,000 children, or we could sum it up around 20,000 crowd of people following Jesus, and they need to feed them. If you're going to read your Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you could find this account, the feeding of 5,000. And there, in other account, in other books, in Matthew, Luke, and Mark, some of the disciples says, send them away, Jesus. But here, we cannot read it here, but it says here, Jesus asked Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? Are you serious? Maybe Philip went to Andrew. Is Jesus serious? He's asking me to buy bread for these 20,000 people? Is he serious? We're in the mountainside. We're already traveling for so many days, healing, teaching, and then Jesus Christ asked me. He asked me to buy bread for these 20,000 people. Is he crazy? My goodness. He just saw that Jesus Christ healed the sick. He healed the leper. He turned the water into wine. And then here, Jesus asks you to buy bread for these people. But I think if you're Philip, you would also be tempted to think about that way. Where could I buy bread for 20,000 people? Maybe you're not on that situation right now. Maybe you're in a different situation. Maybe you're asking, Lord, how can I live with this money right now on my pocket, on my online banking? I barely have $100 and I'm going to pay my bill next month. Maybe you're not facing 20,000 people. Maybe you are facing an impossible relationship. Maybe your son, your daughter, I think this is impossible. He's impossible, she's impossible to change, to transform. My husband, my wife, is so impossible for him to come to God because of his attitude, because of his vices. It's impossible. It's impossible. Now you can relate to Philip. Where shall I go? I don't know where to go. I'm facing a difficult and impossible situation. Where shall I get this? How can I have it? How can I live with this? How can I make it? This is impossible. You're not alone. Philip and the apostles experienced that situation. But mind you, in verse 6 it says there, he asked this. Who's speaking here? Who's he? Jesus. He asked this only to test Philip. Isn't that great? When you're in an impossible situation, isn't that great that God is just testing you? But I would continue the remaining verse of the praise of verse 6. But we are going to jump on verse 7 on what we should do, on how we are going to face or respond when we are facing difficult or impossible situations in our lives. But first, we are going to park it there. He asked this only to test him. But if you are facing the impossible situation, let me tell you this, do not lean on your own understanding. If you're facing a difficult, impossible situation, let me tell you this, brothers and sisters, do not lean on your own understanding. On verse 7, it says there, continue reading, Philip answered, when Jesus Christ asked him, where to buy bread? You should buy bread. Philip answered him, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Half a year's wage in order for them to feed these people. Philip started to calculate, started to use his intellect, his knowledge. Isn't it? We people, we are like that. When we face an impossible situation, we start to calculate. You look at your pocket. What? Oh, $15. What can I buy with $15 now? It's Mother's Day. No, you look at your online banking, and then, oh my goodness, $200 and my rent is $500. How could I pay for this? You try to calculate, okay? Oh, how, IRD, yes, IRD, it's coming. But wait, I have to pay for this one, and then a message from your messenger came, oh, you have to send money to Philippines. Why? Oh my goodness, I haven't still received my rebate, and now I have to send the money. How? You're trying to calculate. Oh my goodness, my brother-in-law is sick. He needs $1 million. Oh my goodness, this is impossible. You try to calculate how many 3 months salary. How much? Okay, but there's a dress ball for my daughter. And then how much? Insurance. You start to calculate. Isn't it impossible? It's impossible. If it is impossible, therefore it is really impossible. Don't try to understand it. You know what's the meaning of impossible? If you're going to Google impossible means not able to occur, not able to exist, not able to be done. You cannot do anything about it. It is impossible. Why try to think about it? So don't lean on your own understanding. It is impossible. How can you feed thousands and thousands of people? You would lose your mind if you try to understand this. When was the last time you were able to solve an impossible thing? When was the last time? Anyone who solved or did the impossible? Anyone? Anyone here? If you're here, come on, please help me. Perhaps you came through from an impossible situation. I believe it's not you, it's God. He did it for you. Do you think the Israelites studied and thought carefully about the Red Sea water and calculated and measured it in order for them to pass through it? No. God just divided the Red Sea. That's miracle. God is the God of impossibilities. Do you think the Israelites tried to measure the decibel of their voice in order for them to shout so that the wall of Jericho will be broken? Do you think so? No. It's God's miracle. So if it is impossible, don't try to think about it. Don't lean on your own understanding. But God is taking so long, Pastor Jun. I've been facing this impossible situation for already 3 hours. 3 hours? You're already. But come on. How many days? 2 days? 4 days? 8 days? 2 weeks? 3 years? 4 years? Impossible situation? I've been praying for my son, my daughter, my husband, Lord, but nothing's happening. It's been so long, Lord. God is taking so long. But remember, yes, God is taking so long, but let me remind you what this wise king said in Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. This verse tells me, I hope it also speaks to you the same way I received it. This verse tells me to trust God and not lean on my own understanding. If you're facing an impossible situation right now, let me tell you this. Just trust God. Just trust Him. Trust Him. That's all. That's all that you can do. Just trust. It's impossible. It's not doable. So just trust. Secondly, don't look down on small beginnings. And it says something like this. Another disciples, first one was Philip. This one, Andrew, the brother of Peter. He spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small, not big like what, loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go? So many. Yes, they found 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 small fish. But Andrew said, how far will they go among so many? So, you know what, church? Honestly, when we're facing a difficult and impossible situation, the first thing that normally comes to our mind are those big, intellectual, powerful, influential people who could possibly help us. Isn't it? When your residence application or work application declined, who was the first person came to your mind? Oh, the attorney. No, I need $1 million or $500,000 for the sickness of this person, blah, blah, blah. Who's going to come to your mind first? This influential connection, big person, rich people, famous. Isn't it? That's our tendency. But you know what? Don't look down on small beginnings. But look whom God used in this impossible situation. Look, who? Who? He was an ordinary boy, small boy actually, a lad, without a degree, not PhD, there's no connection, no army, and he wasn't even counted among the 5,000 men. He wasn't even counted or included in the count because he was a boy, a small boy. Can you get something here? Church, your miracle for your impossible situation could also come from an ordinary boy or ordinary person around you. He could be from your workplace. He could be this person whom you always ignore when you see this person from the mall or supermarket. Or maybe this person is the one whom you always see from the church. You even shy away from him or her. You even try to ignore him. But this person, this ordinary person whom you're always ignoring, could be the person God will use for your impossible situation. Sad to say, he could be the person or a young man or a young boy, a young girl, or a child inside your home. Perhaps he is inside your church or she is inside your church or home. How about your son? Or how about your daughter? Whom you always interrupt when she is trying to say something. Perhaps that's the person whom God will use for you to get out of your impossible situation. Try to listen to them. Don't stop them. Don't interrupt them. Perhaps your wife, your spouse, whom you always ignore, whom you think that you are better and greater than him or her. Perhaps that's the person whom God will use in order for you to break through. Remember in this story, Andrew underestimated the 5 loaves and 2 small fish. He even said, how far will they go among so many? Don't think that we can solve our problem or our situation or impossible situation by huge things, such as huge money, huge bank account, by huge people. Don't think that way. You know what? Even Philip managed to gather half a year's wage on his hand. Literally, cash on his hand, half a year's wage. Do you think he can buy food right there and there? In a desolate place, in a mountainside? Do you think even they got cash during the time, they could find food, bread, and fish enough for 20,000 people? Do you think? There's no Burger King then. There's no takeaway shops. If there's Burger King, Pizza Hut, Domino's, yes, they could possibly, because they could order, okay, 10,000 there, 5,000 here, 2,000 there. There you can find comfort food during that time. So they still need miracle. Even though they got money, even they got money cash on hand, they still need miracle. Even though you have money, even though you have fat bank account, even though you got connections, you got people around you, impossible situation needs the help of God who can do the impossible. Huge amount of money was useless that moment. They need miracle to solve their impossible situation. So don't despise the small beginnings. Don't look down on small beginnings. Don't look down on 5 barley loaves. Don't look down on a boy, on that ordinary boy. Do not look down on 2 small fish. Don't look down on your small salary. Don't look down on your small-time job. Don't look down on your small house. Don't look down on your small people, on small life group, small knowledge. Don't look down on them. It doesn't matter how small it is. What God can do, it is what God can do what really matters. Your miracle could come from small things, from small beginnings. Big things start from small things. Bill Gates didn't start big. He started small and he became big. The truth is, oftentimes, God turns or transforms big things, big people, to small people before He could use them. Oh, yes, that's right. You know Moses? Moses, he lived in the palace for 40 years. Big person, big people, big knowledge. But God didn't use him. God made him small before God used Moses. He brought him to the desert where he shepherded the sheep for 40 years. He became small. When he became small, he needed God. And that's the time God used Moses. I'm not saying that if you're a big person, if you're a big intellect, if you have big packet, I'm not saying that God will not use you, that God will not use you for His to solve impossible situation. What I'm saying is, before God can use you, you have to be surrendered. You have to be submitted to God. But more oftentimes, you know what? Big people with big money, with big connection, with big material things, it's hard for them to surrender and to submit themselves to God. But if you have big money right now, if you have big resources, if you have big connection, if you have big position, it's okay. Just learn to submit yourself, your power, your money to God. And then God can use you. Don't despise the small beginnings. Do not look down on yourself because you're young. Do not look down on yourself because you're just an ordinary employee. Do not look down on yourself because you're a third-class citizen. Do not look down on yourself because you're just a tourist here or you're just a working visa. Come on. You are a citizen of heaven. You are a child of God. Do not look down on yourself. Do not look down on yourself. What we can do is, and the third point that we have is, offer to God what you have. During impossible situation, first, do not lean on your own understanding. Second, do not look down on small beginnings because God can turn things bigger. Thirdly, offer to God what you have. Jesus then took loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. Those who were seated as much as they wanted, He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, He said to His disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled with 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves and left over, and those who had eaten. Isn't that great? God multiplied, God miraculously increased their resources. Because one boy, an ordinary child, offered what he had during the time. Jesus took what was offered to Him. Perhaps, if we don't know the story, just like Andrew, we would also be tempted to say, how far would this bread and fish go among so many? You might be tempted as well to say to yourself, I got few money left. How far would it go? Perhaps you might say to yourself, I only got little energy. How can I make it? Perhaps you say to yourself right now, I only got this small talent or skills. How can I make difference to my workplace, to church, or to my city? I only got little education. How can I go far? I'm lacking on this area. How can I be effective on this job, on this ministry? So you're trying to look down on yourself. But on your personal lack, why not offer it to God? Just like the ordinary boy. If that ordinary boy thought, oh, I won't give this anyway, it's just 5 loaves and 2 fish, how far will it go? I will not go to the disciples and tell them that I have 5 fish and 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But no, he offered it in faith. In your personal lack, offer it to God. Offer it to God. Sometimes God wants to expose your personal lack in order for you to come to Him and see for yourself His abundance. You will never see the abundance of God if you will never be in a situation that you lack something. When you are you have your personal lack, if you are lacking in something, then it's at the time that you would know that God really is our provider. Offer that personal lack to God and let Him grow it and use it, just like what happened to these 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I can imagine Philip while reading this. I can imagine Philip, Peter, Andrew, and other apostles while they're distributing the fish after Jesus Christ took bread and 2 fish, and then he prayed, God, Father, thank you so much. And then he asked the apostles to distribute it. He asked the people to group in small group. And then I can imagine, while Peter, Andrew, Philip, and the rest of the apostles distributing the bread and the fish, they're trying to look people in their eyes as if they're telling, just a little. Only got 5 fish, or 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. They're giving a bad look to them or staring them. They're getting bigger portion. They're trying to stop them from getting a bigger one. But I could also imagine, with their own eyes, they saw it. God, Jesus, increasing and multiplying the 5 loaves and 2 fish. And that's miracle. God is moving in an impossible situation. In our impossible situation, that's where God can display His miracle. If only we offer what we have and allow God to use it. Sometimes we do not see the miracles of God in our lives because we are too much full of ourselves. See how God used what was in the hand of Moses? What was in the hand of Moses? Just as an ordinary cane, ordinary stick that he used for shepherding. That's an ordinary thing. But when Moses offered it to God, that stick was used to divide the Red Sea. Wow. Yes. Ordinary thing, ordinary boy, ordinary person, ordinary group, ordinary child could be used by God. Small things, if offered to God, can be bigger. What's on your hand? Last week, that's the topic of Justin. What's on your hand? Oh, I just got money, $5. What's on your hand? What's on your hand? I only got a stick, Ptr Jun. I only got this. But God is able to multiply what you have and break it through with your impossible situation. If you find yourself, I'm finishing. If you find yourself in an impossible situation, remember what verse 6 says. Let's go back now to verse 6. If you find yourself in an impossible situation, remember what verse 6 says. Let's go back there. He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip found himself in an impossible situation. But verse 6 says, Jesus asked this only to test Philip, Andrew, Peter, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Isn't it great? Yes, you are in an impossible situation right now. God is only testing you. Not in order for Him to know what's in your mind or what's in your heart. Actually, He knows everything. He knows you. He knows your future. He just wants to stretch you. He would like you to be tested and to be stronger, to mature, and to persevere. You're in an impossible situation right now. God is testing you. He knows already. He's already had in mind what He's about to do with you. Your spouse left you? Oh, impossible situation. What would you do? Take it as a test from God. Your child is misbehaving. It's impossible for him or her to change. Take it as a test from God. You lost your job? It's an impossible situation, Lord. Take it as a test. Your finance depleted. Take it as a test. You're persecuted by people around you. Take it as a test. Remember, God already had in mind what He was going to do with your finances, with your children, with your spouse, with your job, with your immigration matter. He knows already. He knows the past, the present, and the future. I don't know what kind of situation you are into right now, but remember, God, the omniscient God, the all-powerful God, the all-knowing God, the all-present God, He knows everything. He already prepared 5 bread and 2 fish for you. An ordinary boy is just around the corner, knocking, coming towards you, and offering you something for you to break through. God can do that. He knows it. He had in mind what He's going to do. But what you ask of me, oh God, is so big. It's too dear for me to to give. You're asking me so, it's too big, Lord. I cannot give this to you. What you ask is so impossible, O God. Just like what you asked Philip and the apostles. Yes, it's actually impossible for me to feed 5,000 and 20,000 people right here, right now. But if God asks me that, I will trust Him. Are you facing an impossible situation right now? Why don't we look at the impossible situation of Abraham? Let's look back. Abraham, he faced an impossible situation when God tested him. Even Abraham experienced testing from God. If you would read your Hebrews 11, verse 17, it says something like this: by faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. When God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. Do you have that kind of experience where God asked for your child? He asked for your son? I don't think so. This is an impossible situation for Abraham. God asked for His only son. This is impossible. This is insane. This is crazy, Lord. You promised me a son, and now you're asking me to give to you? If I was Abraham, I could have told that to God. You're insane. This is ridiculous. It's crazy, Lord. It's crazy. It is impossible. But what did Abraham do? He offered his son. Why? Because he trusted God. He trusted God that even God will kill Abraham as Isaac as sacrifice. He trusted God that God can raise his son Isaac back to life. Because that promise that He would give Abraham a son, Isaac, to become the father of nations. If God would kill Isaac, then there would be no nation. That's why, okay? You promised me, Lord? Then, now you're taking my son, I'll give it to you. God is already in mind. When God was about to offer Isaac, suddenly, there was a lamb, or there was a ram passed, and that's the one that replaced Isaac as a sacrifice. God already knew what He's going to give Abraham. The same way, God knew what He's going to give you right now. 5 loaves and 2 fish. Come on, the boy's already there, waiting for you. Maybe at the bus stop, maybe at the mall, maybe at the Burger King, maybe at your workplace. The boy is waiting for you, an ordinary person waiting for you in order for you to break through, for you to get out of your impossible situation. Just don't lean on your own understanding. God can make miracles by His own. He doesn't need us, actually, in order for Him to display miracles and wonders in this world. But He would like to use you to be part of this miracle. The apostles, they were part of this miracle. Why? Because they admitted their lives to Jesus. Would you like to be part of this miracle? God can use you and be part of His miracle. Every person's lives, in your workplace, in your schools, God can use you. Only you would offer your 5 loaves and 2 fish. Your obedience, your offering can be someone's miracle. Your $5, giving them a ride, texting them with the Word of God, that could be someone's miracle. Maybe just tap on the back. Bless you, brother. Oh, thank you, Lord, for that pat on the back. I felt your presence, Lord, when someone tapped me on the back at church. Oh, thank you, Lord, for this message. Thank you, Lord, for this text. It encouraged me, inspired me. Come on. That's the message for today. If you are facing impossible situation, do not lean on your own understanding. No way. Don't lean on your understanding. Do not look down on small beginnings and small things. Offer what you've got to God. God will increase it. And today, we are going to believe for the impossible. As a command of God, God can do impossible things. Though you're not receiving any answered prayer in your life, continue pressing in, continue believing God, continue trusting God, because that's who God is. He's the God of impossibilities. He's the answering God. Come on. If you've been praying for a job and you haven't received it, continue praying, continue believing that God can give you a job, because that's who God is. If you've been sick, if you're not yet well until now, many people already lay hands on you, and still you're not well. Come on, continue praying for your wellness, and God will do it. I don't know when, but still, let's believe and trust God that He can do it.